Okay, so here we are. I'm actually at the library. We are open different hours, but we're open 5 days a week for several hours a day. Uh, the staff is here in the building. If you want to call, there are people who are here to pick up the phone. If you want to order books for pickup, we have special pickup days, and you can order books at pickup at sopl.org. And we will pull the books and put them in bags and call you when the books are ready. Then you'll come and pick them up. We also are doing summer reading. Here's our summer reading schedule, also available online at www.sopl.org on the children's page, which you can find on the left-hand side of the homepage. Just click on children's page, and there's a lot of suggestions for books to read. There's a lot of information about summer reading and the programs that we're doing. Some we hope to do outside, some will be virtual like this one, and they'll be recorded for people to view at a more convenient time if you're not able to Zoom in live. So today, Friday, we're going to start a weekly read aloud. Who doesn't like to have a story read to them? Miss Beth, I'm the children's librarian. We miss you all. We hope you get to come into the building or call us or send us an email. You can email at children@sopl.org and send me a message. Let me know you're okay and what you're up to this summer. You will need to come into the library. If you need to go into the library, you'll need to have a face covering, and we'll ask you to step up to the kiosk and just have your temperature taken and then come on in and browse. So today I'm reading a short story in a collection that was put together by Avi, who is a very well-known author and written a lot of books, including Crispin, which was a prize-winning book, actually won the Newbery. All of his titles are here at the library under AVI, and you can request them at pickup. This prize-winning book was Crispin, The Cross of Lead. It's appropriate. It takes place in the 14th century medieval England. A 13-year-old boy who thought he had little to lose finds that he has even less. He ends up with no home, no family or possessions, and he's accused of a crime that he has to clear his name of. If he wants to remain alive, he has to flee his tiny village, and all he can take with him is his new name, Crispin, and his mother's cross of lead. Okay, so he didn't write the story I'm going to read today, but he did ask other authors to contribute a story to a collection of short stories. So it's called Best Shorts, Favorite Short Stories for Sharing. And the one I'm going to read today is by Lindsay Namioka. It's called Laugh, not laugh like ha ha ha, but L-A-F-F, all in caps. Okay, let's get started. See if you can figure out where the story is going. It took me till the end of the story to figure it out, which made it really interesting and fun to read. In movies, geniuses have frizzy white hair, right? They wear thick glasses and they have names like Dr. Zweinstein. Peter Lou didn't have frizzy white hair. He had straight hair, as black as licorice. He didn't wear thick glasses either, since his vision was normal. Peter's family, like ours, had immigrated from China, but they had settled here first. When we moved into a house just 2 doors down from the Lou's, they gave us some good advice on how to get along in America. I went to the same school as Peter, and we walked to the school bus stop every morning. Like many Chinese parents, mine made sure that I worked very hard in school. In spite of all I could do, my grades were nothing compared to Peter's. He was at the top in all his classes. We walked to the school bus without talking because I was a little scared of him. Besides, he was always deep in thought. Peter didn't have any friends. Most of the kids thought he was a nerd because they just saw his head always buried in books. I didn't think he even tried or cared about the kids in the class. Then, on Halloween, He surprised us all. As I went down the block trick-or-treating, dressed as a zucchini in my green sweats, I heard a strange, deep voice behind me say, "How do you do?" I yelped and turned around. Peter was wearing a long black Chinese gown with slits in the sides. On his head, he had a little round cap, and down each side of his mouth drooped a thin, long mustache. "I'm Dr. Lu Manchu, the mad scientist," he announced, putting his hands in his sleeves and bowing. He smiled when he saw me staring at his costume. It was a scary smile somehow. Some of the other kids came up, and when they saw Peter, they were impressed. "Hey, neat," said one boy. I hadn't expected Peter to put on a costume or go trick-or-treating like a normal kid. So maybe he did want to join the others after all, at least some of the time. After that night, he wasn't a nerd anymore. He was Dr. Lu Manchu. Even some of the teachers began to call him that. When we became too old for trick-or-treating, Peter was still Dr. Lu Manchu. The rumor was that he was working on a fantastic machine in his parents' garage, but nobody had any idea what it was. One evening, as I was coming home from a babysitting job, I cut across the Lu's backyard. Passing their garage, I saw through a little window that the light was on. My curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked in. I saw a booth that looked like a shower stall. A stool stood in the middle of the stall, and hanging over the stool was something that looked like a great big shower head. Suddenly, a deep voice behind me said, "Good evening, Angela." Peter bowed and smiled his scary smile. He didn't have his costume on, and he didn't have the long, droopy mustache, but he was Dr. Lu Manchu. "What are you doing?" I squeaked. Still in his strange, deep voice, Peter said, "What are you doing? After all, this is my garage." "I was just cutting across your yard to get home. Your parents, they let me. They never complained before." "Oh, I thought you were spying on me," said Peter. "I thought you wanted to know about my machine." And he hissed when he said the word machine. Honestly, he was beginning to frighten me. "What machine?" I demanded. "You mean this shower stall thing?" He drew himself up, narrowed his eyes, making them into thin slits, and he said, "This is my time machine." I goggled at him. You mean this machine can send you forward and backward in time?" "Well, actually, I can only send things forward in time," he admitted, speaking in his regular voice again. "That's why I'm calling the machine Laugh. Not laugh like hee hee hee, but laugh, L in caps, LAFF. It stands for Lu's Artifact for Fast Forward. Of course, Peter always won first prize at the annual statewide science fair, but that's a long way from making a time machine. Minus his mustache and long Chinese gown, he was just Peter Lu. "I don't believe it," I said. "I bet your laugh is only good for a laugh. Ha ha ha." "Okay, Angela, I'll show you," hissed Peter. He sat down on the stool and twisted a dial. I heard some bleeps, cheeps, and gurgles, and Peter disappeared. He must have done it with mirrors. I looked around the garage. I peeked under the tool bench. There was no sign of him. "Okay, I give up," I told him. "It's a good trick, Peter. You can come out now." Bleep, cheep, gurgle went the machine, and there was Peter, sitting on the stool. He held a red rose in his hand. What do you think of that? I blinked. "So, you produced a flower. Maybe you hid it under the stool." "Roses bloom in June, right?" he demanded. That was true, and this was December. I set myself forward in time to June when the flowers are blooming, said Peter, and I picked a rose from our yard. Convinced, Angela? It was too hard to swallow. You said you couldn't send things back in time, so how did you bring the rose back? But even as I spoke, I saw his hands were empty. The rose was gone. That's one of the problems with the machine, said Peter. When I send myself forward, I can't seem to stay there for long. I snap back to my own time after only a minute. Anything I bring with me snaps back to its own time too. So my rose has gone back to June. I was finally convinced, and I began to see possibilities. Wow, just think, if I don't want to do the dishes, I could send myself forward to the time when the dishes are already done. Well, that won't do you much good, said Peter, because you'd soon pop back to the time when the dishes were still dirty. Too bad. There must be something your machine is good for, I said. Then I had another idea. Hey, you can bring me back a piece of fudge from the future, and I can eat it twice, once now and again in the future. Yeah, but the fudge wouldn't stay in your stomach, said Peter. It would go back to the future. That's even better, I said. I could enjoy eating fudge over and over again. It was late, and I had to go home before my parents started to worry. Before I left, Peter said, look, Angela, there's still a lot of work to do on Laugh. Please don't tell anybody about the machine till I've got it all right. A few days later, I asked him how he was doing. I can stay in the future time a bit longer now, he said. Once I got it up to 4 minutes. Is that enough time to bring me back some fudge from the future? We don't keep many sweets around the house, he said, but I'll see what I can do. A few minutes later, he came back with a spring roll for me. He went to the future, and his mother was frying spring rolls in the kitchen. And I grabbed one when she wasn't looking. I bit into the hot, crunchy spring roll, but before I finished chewing, it disappeared. The taste of soy sauce, green onions, and bean sprouts stayed a little longer in my mouth, though. It was fun to play around with Laugh, but it wasn't really useful, except I didn't know what a great help it would turn out to be. Every year, our school held a writing contest, and the winning story for each grade got printed in our school magazine. I wanted desperately to win. I worked awfully hard in school, but my parents still thought I could do better. Winning the writing contest would show my parents that I was really good in something. I love writing stories, and I have lots of ideas. But when I actually write them down, my stories never turn out as good as I thought. I just can't seem to find the right words because English isn't my first language. I got an honorable mention last year, but it wasn't the same as winning and showing my parents my name, Angela Tang, printed in the school magazine. The deadline for the contest was getting close, and I had a pile of stories written, but none of them looked like a winner. Then, the day before the deadline, boing! A brilliant idea hit me. I thought of Peter and his Laugh machine. I rushed over to the Lou's garage, and just as I had hoped, Peter was there tinkering with his machine. I have this great idea for winning the story contest, I told him breathlessly. You see, to be certain of winning, I have to write the story that would be the winner. That's obvious, Peter said dryly. In fact, you're going around in a circle. Wait, listen, I said. I want to use Laugh and go forward to the time when the next issue of the school magazine is out. Then I can read the winning story. After a moment, Peter nodded. He said, I see. You plan to write down the winning story after you've read it and then send it into the contest. I nodded eagerly. That story would have to win because it's the winner. Peter began to look interested. Well, I've got Laugh to the point where I can stay in the future for 7 minutes now. Will that be long enough for you? I'll just have to work quickly, I said. Peter smiled. It wasn't his scary Lu Manchu smile, but a nice smile. He was getting as excited as I was. Okay, Angela, let's go for it. He led me to the stool. What's your destination, he asked. I mean, when's your destination? Suddenly I was nervous. I told myself that Peter had made many time trips, and he looked perfectly healthy. Why not? What have I got to lose? except time. I took a deep breath. I want to go forward 3 weeks in time. By then, I would have a copy of the new school magazine in my room. Ready, Angela? Asked Peter. As ready as I'll ever be, I whispered. Bleep, cheep, gurgle. Suddenly, Peter disappeared. What went wrong? Did Peter get sent by mistake instead of me? Oh, then I realized what happened. We were in the future, and 3 weeks later in time, Peter might be somewhere else. No wonder I couldn't see him. There was no time to be lost. Rushing out of Peter's garage, I went over to our house and entered through the back door. Mother was in the kitchen. When she saw me, she stared. She said, Angela, I thought you were upstairs taking a shower. Sorry, I said, no time to talk. I dashed up to my room, and suddenly I had a strange idea. What if I met myself in my room? Oh, that was a spooky thought. There was nobody in my room. Where was I? I mean, where was the I of 3 weeks later? Wait, Mom had just said she thought I was taking a shower. Down the hall, I could hear the water running in the bathroom. Okay, that meant I wouldn't run into me for a while. I went to the shelf above my desk and frantically pawed through the junk piled there. I found it. I found the latest issue of the school magazine, the one with the winning stories printed in it. How much time had passed? Better hurry. The shower had stopped running. That meant the other me was out of the bathroom. Have to get out of here. Too late. Just as I started down the stairs, I heard Mother talking again. Angela, a minute ago you were all dressed. Now you're in your robe again and your hair's all wet. I don't understand. I shivered. It was scary listening to Mother talking to myself downstairs. I heard my other self answering something. And then the sound of my footsteps coming up the stairs. In a panic, I dodged into the spare room and closed the door. I heard the steps, my steps, go past and into my room. The minute I heard the door of my room close, I rushed out and down the stairs. Mother was standing at the foot of the stairs. When she saw me, her mouth dropped. But just a minute ago, you were in your robe and your hair was all wet. See you later, Mother, I said, and I ran. Behind me, I heard Mother muttering, I'm going mad. I didn't stop and try to explain because I might go mad too. It would be great if I could just keep the magazine with me, but like the spring roll, it would get carried back to its own time after a few minutes. So the next best thing was to read the magazine as fast as I could. It was hard to run and flip through the magazine at the same time, but I made it to Peter's garage and I plopped down on the stool. At last I found the story that won the contest in our grade. I started to read. Suddenly I heard bleep, cheep, gurgle, and Peter loomed up in front of me. I was back in my original time again, but I still had the magazine. Now I had to read the story before the magazine popped back to the future. It was hard to concentrate with Peter jumping up and down impatiently, so different from his usual calm, collected self. I read a few paragraphs. I was beginning to see how the story would shape up. But before I got any further, the magazine disappeared from my hand. So I didn't finish reading the story. I didn't get to read the end. And I didn't get to read the end where the name of the winning writer was printed. That night, I stayed up very late to write down what I remembered of the story. It had a neat plot, and I could see why it was the winner. I hadn't read the entire story, so I had to make up the ending myself. But that was okay, since I knew how it would come out. I was going to be the winner. The winners of the writing contest would be announced at the school assembly on Friday. After we had filed into the assembly hall and sat down, the principal gave a speech. I tried not to fidget while he explained about the contest. Suddenly, I was struck by a dreadful thought. Somebody in the class, my class, had written the winning story, the one I had copied. Wouldn't that person be declared the winner instead of me? The principal started announcing the winners. I chewed my knuckles in an agony of suspense as I waited to see who would be announced as the winner in my class. Slowly, the principal began with the lowest grade. Each winner walked in slow motion to the stage while the principal slowly explained why the story was good. At last, he came to our grade. The winner is, and then he stopped, slowly got out his handkerchief, and slowly blew his nose. Then he cleared his throat. The winning story is Around and Around by Angela Tang. I sat like a stone, unable to move, and Peter nudged me. Go on, Angela, they're waiting for you. I got up and walked to the stage in a daze. The principal's voice seemed to be coming from far, far away as he told the audience I had written a science fiction story about time travel. The winners each got a notebook bound in imitation leather for writing more stories. Inside the cover of the notebook was a ballpoint pen. But the best prize was having my story in the school magazine with my name printed at the end. Why didn't I feel good about winning then? After assembly, the kids in our class crowded around to congratulate me. And Peter formally shook my hand. Good work, Angela, he said, and winked at me. That didn't make me feel any better. I hadn't won the contest fairly. Instead of writing the story myself, I had copied it from the school magazine. That meant someone in our class, one of the kids here, had actually written the story. Who was it? My heart was knocking against my ribs as I stood there and waited for someone to complain that I had stolen the story. Nobody did. As we were riding the school bus home, Peter looked at me and said, You don't seem very happy about winning the contest, Angela. No, I'm not, I said. I just feel awful. Tell you what, said Peter. Come over to my house and we'll discuss it. What is there to discuss, I asked glumly. I won the contest because I cheated. Come on over anyway. My mother bought a fresh package of humbao in Chinatown. I couldn't turn down the invitation. Humbao, a roll stuffed with barbecued pork, is my favorite snack. Peter's mother came into the kitchen while we were munching, and Peter told her about the contest. Mrs. Liu looked pleased. I'm very glad, Angela. You have a wonderful imagination, and you deserve to win. I like Angela's story, said Peter. They're original. It was the first compliment he had ever paid me, and I felt my face turning red. After Mrs. Liu left us, Peter and I each had another roll stuffed with pork, but I was still miserable. I wish I had never started this. I feel like such a jerk. Peter looked at me, and I swear he was enjoying himself. Did you ever think of this? If you stole another student's story, why didn't that person complain? I don't know I will. I cried. Thanks, said Peter. You're smart, Angela. Come on, figure it out. Me, smart? I was so overcome to hear myself called smart by a genius like Peter that I just stared at him. He had to repeat himself. Angela, figure it out. I tried to concentrate. Why was Peter looking so amused? The light finally dawned. Got it, I said slowly. I'm the one who wrote the story. The winning story is your own, Angela, because that's the one that won. My head began to go around and around. But where did the original idea for the story come from? What made the plot so good? Asked Peter. His voice sounded unsteady. Well, in my story, my character used a time machine to go forward in time. Okay, whose idea was it to use a time machine? It was mine, I said slowly. I remembered the moment when the idea hit me with a boing. So you stole from yourself, sputtered Peter. He started to roar with laughter. I had never seen him break down like that. At this rate, he might wind up being human. When he could talk again, he asked me to read my story to him. I began. In the movies, geniuses have frizzy white hair, right? They wear thick glasses and have names like Dr. Weinstein. And that's the end of this short story. So did you figure it out while we were going along? Because at one point I realized if somebody else actually wrote the winning story, wouldn't they say something in class? But then I realized, oh, before we got to the end, I realized, oh, Angela must have really written the winning story. So if you want to let me know if you figured it out, you can email me at children@sopl.org. Tell me how you like the story. And as I said, this is a collection of short stories by different authors. Richard Peck, Theodore Taylor, Paul Fleischman, Natalie Babbitt. And this is available for checkout at the library. It's called Best Shorts by Avi. And so I think I've introduced you to two new authors right now. Avi, who I said has written Crispin, which is a whole series. And he's written a lot of other books too. But this is a series. Also available at the library, Crispin Across of Lead, or you could just go under Avi, A-V-I, to look up other titles of his. And the author of the short story also has written other books that we have here at the library. One is called The Loyal Cat. This is by Lensey, Lensey, Namioka. And one of the other books she's written is called, and I just read it before we started, it's very funny, it's called The Laziest Boy in the World. It's a picture book. Again, by Lensey, Lensey, Namioka. Okay, that's the end of today's Read Aloud. Again, I hope you'll join us for some of the other programs. On Monday, we're going to do some Legos, which will be outside using social distance, of course, and everyone wearing a mask. Thank you.